Okay, let's dive right into this. We're going to talk about some habits you might recognize in yourself. Things like overthinking or always needing to have some alone time. And we're going to completely reframe them. What if those aren't actually flaws, but signs of a pretty amazing cognitive superpower?
Does this sound familiar? It's 3 in the morning and you are deep, deep down a rabbit hole about some brand new topic. You're the person who's always asking why, and you can never, ever just settle for a simple answer. Well, if that's hitting a little close to home, it turns out there's actually a name for that feeling.
Yeah, psychologists actually call it intellectual hunger. And here's the most important part. This isn't some kind of bug in your system, it's a feature. It's a recognized psychological trait, which basically means your mind is literally built to crave knowledge and complexity. So in this explainer, we're going to decode 5 habits that are really the telltale signs of this trait. We'll look at the real purpose behind overthinking, that thrill of learning, why you might prefer depth over small talk, the surprising logic of solitude and organization, and finally, why you are absolutely not strange. As we go, just see how many of these feel like, yep, that's me.
All right, let's start with the big one, overthinking. Most people hear that word and they immediately think anxiety, but for the intellectually hungry, it serves a much more strategic and, frankly, a much more brilliant purpose.
Now, what's so interesting here is the huge gap in perception. To someone on the outside, you might look indecisive, maybe even paralyzed by what seems like a simple choice. But the reality is, your brain is running a full-scale analysis. It's like a simulation, really, examining every single angle, every potential consequence, and all the possibilities that most people just wouldn't even consider. And psychologists actually have a term for this superpower. It's called cognitive reflection. It's that ability to just hit pause on your gut instinct and instead build this complete architecture of information around a problem. You're not just thinking, you are methodically constructing a mental model of the situation to find the absolute best, most logical path forward. Okay, let's move on to our second habit, and you'll see how these things start to connect. This one is all about that intense, almost obsessive drive to learn new things, and it's tied directly to your brain's own internal reward system. Have you ever gone all in on a topic? Like one week it's ancient Roman aqueducts, the next it's the physics of black holes, you become this mini expert, and then you just move on. To other people, it might look kind of random, maybe a little weird, but in reality, it's a sign that your brain is hardwired to choose complexity over comfort. You're not just reading, you are literally feeding your mind. And this breaks down the biology behind it so well. The very act of wrestling with a complex idea and finally getting it triggers a dopamine reward in your brain. So you find a new challenge, you engage with it, and boom, your brain gives you that little hit of dopamine. And of course, that feels good, so it reinforces the behavior, making you crave even more complexity. It's this powerful, self-sustaining engine for learning. Okay, so what about social situations? This next habit explains why so many intellectually hungry people find small talk so incredibly, unbelievably draining. Right, so people might see you as shy or standoffish, maybe even antisocial because you're quiet in a group, but it has absolutely nothing to do with shyness. Your social wiring is just different. You're constantly scanning for depth, for meaning, for new ideas, and surface-level chatter about the weather, it doesn't just feel boring, it feels mentally inefficient. So while you might look quiet on the outside, your brain is anything but idle. You're actually engaged in what's called active observation. You're processing tone of voice, emotional undercurrents, the unspoken logic flowing through the group. You're scanning the entire system, just waiting for an entry point where the real complexity begins, ready to jump right in when the conversation finally gets interesting. This brings us to our fourth section, which connects two things that, on the surface, might seem totally unrelated: a deep need for solitude and a very particular approach to organization. When you crave alone time, it's not about avoiding people, not at all. It's a non-negotiable need to enter a deeper state of thinking. Solitude is your lab. It's where your brain's creative and problem-solving networks can finally fire on all cylinders, allowing you to connect all these different ideas without distraction. It's where the real architecture of your most complex thoughts gets built. And now let's talk about the classic messy desk. I mean, to other people, it looks like pure chaos. But for a mind driven by intellectual hunger, it's often a sign of extreme mental efficiency. Your brain is dedicating its precious energy to high-level problems and abstract systems, not to the trivial physical detail of stacking papers perfectly. And yes, there's a name for this too: selective organization. It's basically a highly efficient system of mental triage. You pour your energy where it has the highest impact, into your ideas, your digital files, your complex projects, while consciously letting all the trivial physical chaos just exist. It's a strategic trade-off, and it frees you up for higher level thinking. So, let's bring all of this together. If these habits have felt almost uncomfortably accurate to you, there is a really powerful and deeply validating conclusion to draw from all this. Here they are, all in one place: productive overthinking, not anxiety; dopamine-fueled learning, depth-seeking conversations, purposeful solitude, and selective organization. See? These aren't random quirks. These are features. They're the operational signatures of a deeply curious and complex mind. So, the single most important takeaway here is this: the next time you catch yourself running 1,000 different scenarios or getting lost in a new obsession, just remember this idea. You aren't overthinking. You are decoding. You are breaking down the world around you to understand its systems, its patterns, and its fundamental truths. And that leaves us with one final and, I think, pretty exciting question. This intellectual hunger, it's your superpower. It is the engine that drives you to learn, to grow, and to truly understand. So now that you can see it for what it really is, what complex, fascinating, and wonderful thing are you going to choose to decode next?